Your uniqueness is divinely designed. There has never been anyone created like you, and that's why you can't be ignored. From the moment you entered this world, something about you didn't match the pattern. While others blended into the crowd, you always carried something set apart. You may not have known it at first. In fact, your entire life may have felt like a struggle to understand who you are, and why you've always felt different. Maybe people misunderstood you, labeled you, or tried to mold you into something you were never meant to be, but none of it stuck. No matter how much others tried to define you, your spirit refused to be confined. You were born with something rare, something heaven ordained, and that divine signature is all over your life. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. When God sets someone apart, it's not about pride, it's about purpose. And you are walking proof that divine purpose doesn't require popularity. You don't chase trends because you are the trend. You don't seek validation because you were validated before you were even born. In your silence, you speak volumes. In your stillness, you shift atmospheres. You carry something so rare that people can't help but notice, even when they pretend not to. And this uniqueness is not a product of your environment or your accomplishments. It's who you are at your core. It's in your energy, your resilience, your mind, and even in your struggle. Some of your greatest moments of growth came through pain that no one else saw. While others were celebrated for doing the bare minimum, you were being broken in silence, rebuilt in private, and refined through pressure. That's why you're not ordinary. That's why you confuse people. They look at you and see calm, but have no idea about the storms you had to walk through to carry that peace. They see confidence, but can't comprehend the battles you had to win in secret to stand tall. Your story is full of hidden victories. You're not just different. You're divinely designed to disrupt the norm and reveal what can't be replicated. There's something about you that causes people to question themselves. Not because you're trying to make them feel small, but because your light exposes the areas they've neglected in themselves. Your presence is a mirror, and when people look at you, they are forced to confront what they're not. That's why you've always had resistance. That's why people who barely know you feel threatened. That's why you've been excluded, misunderstood, and even hated. Your uniqueness irritates comfort zones and exposes the artificial. You walk in authenticity, and in a world built on appearances, that's a threat. But you didn't choose this, you were chosen. And with being chosen comes a different weight, a different responsibility, and a different level of testing. You had to learn how to stand alone before you were allowed to stand out. You had to master your silence before your voice could carry power. You had to be overlooked so that when the spotlight hits, you won't need it to feel seen. You've been built in secret, and now your presence speaks louder than words. What people don't realize is that being different isn't always easy. It comes with isolation, internal battles, and seasons where it feels like nobody understands you. But that's exactly what shaped you. Your uniqueness was never meant to make you feel superior. It was meant to keep you focused. You were wired to lead, not follow, to innovate, not imitate, to inspire, not impress. That's why the path you've walked doesn't look like anyone else's, and it never will. Comparison dies where identity is strong, and you, chosen one, are rooted in something eternal. You don't need to explain yourself because your life speaks. You don't need to seek revenge because your growth will do it for you. You don't need to prove your worth because your existence is proof enough. There are people who can sense your uniqueness and still won't acknowledge it. Not because they don't see it, but because they can't handle it. You remind them of what they gave up on. You make them question why they settled. You reflect the kind of courage they couldn't maintain. But that's not your burden to carry. Your job is to walk boldly in who you are. The ones who are meant to support you will recognize your value without needing to be convinced. The ones who are meant to rise with you will feel peace in your presence, not competition. You weren't made to fit into broken systems or follow tired patterns. You're here to shift narratives, to raise standards, to bring light where there's been nothing but shadows. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's misunderstood, but it's also sacred. You carry an assignment that doesn't come with a manual because no one has done it the way you're about to. There's no blueprint because you are the blueprint. That's why you've been stretched, pressed, and refined. That's why nothing ever came easy for you, because you're being equipped for something greater than you imagined. You're not everyone's cup of tea because you weren't created for everyone's table. Your uniqueness is meant to attract what's aligned with your calling and repel what isn't. So stop dimming your light to make others comfortable. Stop apologizing for being too intense, too deep, too passionate, too real. You were never meant to be lukewarm. You were never meant to be average. You were created to stand out, to lead boldly, to heal loudly, to live authentically. The ones who truly see you will never ask you to shrink. They'll know your light doesn't threaten them. It reveals the way. You are not too much. You are exactly what this world needs right now. You don't fit in because you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to build, to awaken, to rise, and to lead the way forward. People are secretly inspired, obsessed, or intimidated by your presence. Even those who claim not to care are watching closely. There's something magnetic about you that draws attention whether you ask for it or not. You walk into a room and eyes follow, not because you're seeking validation, but because your energy demands to be acknowledged. There's a frequency you carry that doesn't need volume to be heard. Even in silence, you're felt. The way you move, the way you carry yourself, the way your presence lingers long after you've gone. It all speaks of something greater, something uncommon. You don't just exist, you leave an imprint, and it's that unshakable presence that keeps people intrigued, confused, and often obsessed. Some admire it and don't know how to say it. Others envy it and pretend not to see it. But whether they whisper your name with love or with hate, they're still speaking it. You live rent, free in minds that once underestimated you. It's not what you wear, what you own, or how you talk that has them so caught up. It's the spirit within you. There's an undeniable force around you that reveals what others try to hide in themselves. You expose the smallness in those who have chosen to think small. You expose the doubt in those who gave up too soon. You remind them of the potential they buried, the risks they were too afraid to take, and the authenticity they abandoned in exchange for acceptance. That's why they can't stop watching you. You trigger something within them, sometimes inspiration, sometimes jealousy, sometimes confusion, but you always trigger something. Your very existence is a mirror, and people aren't always ready for what they see in their own reflection. They may pretend not to notice, but they take notes. They mimic your phrases, adopt your habits, and try to capture the very essence they once ignored. Some even build their whole identity off what they observed in you without ever giving credit. And you might wonder why they can't just support you openly, why they hide behind fake compliments or distant silence. But the truth is, many people don't know how to deal with a light they can't control. They've been trained to compete, not to celebrate. They've been conditioned to copy, not to collaborate. And in a world that rewards surface-level success, your depth is intimidating. People are studying your moves like a blueprint. They want the results without your discipline. They want the blessings without your battles. They see the strength, but overlook the scars. They see the confidence, but ignore the nights you had to build yourself back up from nothing. You didn't become who you are overnight. You've been through rejection, betrayal, isolation, and failure, but you kept going, you kept showing up. And now that your growth is visible, those who doubted you are having a hard time pretending you don't exist. That's why they watch silently. That's why they lurk in the shadows. That's why your name stays on their tongue even when they claim they're not thinking about you. There's a type of power that doesn't require noise, and you have that. It's the kind of power that comes from alignment, not applause. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply living in your truth, and that truth threatens every lie people have built their lives upon. You're not playing a role. You are the real thing, and authenticity is rare. When you're real in a world full of filters, you become a target, not because you've done anything wrong, but because your light is undeniable. Your authenticity exposes pretense. Your growth exposes stagnancy. Your peace exposes chaos, and your confidence exposes insecurity. That's why they act strange. That's why you feel tension in rooms where you've done nothing but exist. You're not being paranoid. Your spirit picks up what your eyes can't always see. You feel the shift when someone's energy changes. You notice the passive, aggressive comments. You catch the fake smiles and forced laughter. You hear your name in conversations you were never invited to. But instead of shrinking, you rise. You don't dim your light to make others comfortable. You've learned that being watched is part of the calling. When you're chosen, you're studied. When you're favored, you're followed. When you're anointed, you're attacked. Not because you're weak, but because you're a threat. The people pretending not to care are often the ones most affected by your presence. They check your stories, monitor your progress, and compare your journey to theirs in silence. Some even pray for your downfall while taking notes from your rise. But no matter what they do, they can't unsee what they've seen. They can't unfeel what your presence made them feel. You've already shifted something inside them. Even if they never admit it, you've left an impact, and it doesn't matter if they support you or not. What matters is that you keep showing up in full power. You weren't created to be liked by everyone. You were created to walk boldly in your purpose, and those who are for you will recognize your value without being told. The rest will be forced to watch you shine from the sidelines. Your influence goes beyond what can be measured in likes, followers, or applause. Your influencing lives in silence. You're planting seeds in minds you've never even spoken to, and while some are plotting against you, others are being transformed by your presence. You don't have to be loud to be legendary. You just have to keep being real, keep being consistent, and keep walking in truth. Your light is already doing the work. Your haters are not mad at you. They're mad at the fact that they can't control or replicate what God placed inside you. There's a divine code within you that can't be copied, no matter how hard they try. People can mimic your style, imitate your words, even steal your ideas, but they will never be able to duplicate your essence. And that's what frustrates them the most. It's not just your success that bothers them. It's the fact that you carry something that can't be bought, taught, or fabricated. It's an anointing, a calling, a presence that causes disruption wherever you go. You are a divine original, and that truth alone causes those with small minds and envious hearts to burn with silent rage. They don't want to admit it, but deep down, they know there's something about you they'll never be able to touch. The reason why some people come against you isn't because you did anything to them. It's because your existence reminds them of everything they're not. You're a walking contradiction to their comfort zones. You rise even after being pushed down. You thrive even when resources are scarce. You glow even after walking through darkness. And while others may be praised for doing the expected, you carry the weight of doing the impossible and making it look effortless. That's where the jealousy brews, in the unspoken comparisons, in the shadows of silent competition, in the hearts of those who want your results without your process. They want the favor but not the faith, the platform but not the pain, the influence but not the integrity. You're not just successful, you're spiritually fortified. That's the real threat. What they hate most is that you cannot be moved. No matter what they say about you, no matter what lies they spread, you remain focused. You're unshaken, and that confuses people who rely on drama, gossip, and manipulation to stay relevant. They try to discredit you with words, but your character keeps speaking louder. They try to dim your light, but your glow is internal. It doesn't come from external approval. That's why it frustrates them. They thought if they ignored you, you'd shrink. They thought if they doubted you, you'd give up. They thought if they opposed you, you'd back down. But instead, you grew stronger, wiser, and more aligned. The more they tried to suppress you, the more God elevated you. And now, they're not just irritated, they're terrified, not because of what you have, but because of who you are becoming. There's power in knowing who you are, and you've embraced that power. You're not walking around trying to please people anymore. You're not seeking permission to be great. You've stopped apologizing for being chosen, for being gifted, for being favored. And when you walk in confidence, it exposes every insecurity in those who pretended to be allies. That's why they distance themselves. That's why they start acting differently. That's why they start talking behind your back. It's not that you changed. It's that you stopped shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. Your elevation brings exposure, and not everyone can handle the altitude. The air gets thinner at the top, and only those prepared spiritually can breathe there. You may have thought they hated you because of your mistakes or your past, but that's not it. What truly bothers them is your resilience. You were supposed to quit. You were supposed to break down. You were supposed to stay stuck. But every time life knocked you down, you rose with more fire. That confuses people who would have collapsed under the same pressure. They don't understand how you still have joy after betrayal, how you still smile after heartbreak, how you still speak life after being surrounded by death. But they don't see what fuels you. They don't know the prayers you've whispered, the nights you've cried, the battles you've fought in silence. They only see the results and assume it's luck, never realizing it's divine strategy. The hate you experience isn't random, it's spiritual. When light enters darkness, it exposes what's hidden. Your presence causes discomfort in those who are pretending. You being real reveals everything fake around you. You walking in truth uncovers every lie. That's why the attacks feel personal. That's why the jealousy feels intense, because it is. You're not just disturbing people. You're disturbing spirits. You're shaking foundations that were built on ego, fear, and false identity. And the more authentic you become, the more threatening you appear to people who rely on masks. But you weren't made to blend in. You were made to break barriers. You don't need to respond to every attack. You don't need to clear your name every time someone lies. You don't have to chase validation from people who were never meant to understand your vision. Your fruit speaks for itself. The evidence of your calling is too loud to be silenced. You're not where you are by accident. Every door that opened was ordained. Every closed door was protection. Every delay was preparation. And now you're walking into rooms where your name was already spoken before you arrived. That's what eats them up inside. The fact that despite all the opposition, you're still rising. Despite all the schemes, you're still favored. Despite all the hate, you're still chosen. They can't figure out how you keep going. They can't understand how someone with your background, your scars, your history, keeps showing up with excellence and grace, and it bothers them because they bet against you. They built narratives in their minds that required you to fail so they could feel better about their own choices. But now they're watching you thrive, and the very sight of your progress feels like punishment to them. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your wins highlight their unwillingness to grow. But that's not your fault. You were never competing. You were never trying to outshine anyone. You were just being obedient to what was placed inside you. You are not just seen. You are divinely known. Every part of your journey, from your silent battles to your bold victories, is evidence that you are not ordinary. You were chosen for a reason, and the world cannot ignore what God has marked. Your uniqueness isn't a weakness, it's your weapon. Your presence, your purpose, and your power were never meant to be understood by everyone, and that's perfectly okay. Let them wonder, let them watch, let them sweat. While they try to figure you out, keep walking in truth. Keep rising, keep being the living proof that favor isn't fair but it's real. The right people will recognize you, the wrong ones will reveal themselves, and through it all, you will continue to thrive. You were never meant to be hidden, silenced, or dimmed. You were meant to disrupt, uplift, and remind the world that chosen ones don't follow. They lead. Thank you for listening, for believing, and for standing in your light. Whether the world applauds you or not, heaven already has. Stay strong, stay focused, and never forget, you are not just surviving. You are rising with purpose. God bless you all, and remember, there has never been anyone like you. Goodbye, take care, and thank you for your time.